A warm welcome to Studio MH Day, here live from Berlin. I'm Ina Jurga, the International Coordinator for Menstrual Hygiene Day, working for WASH United, and I'm your host today. Next to me is Thorsten Kiefer, my co-host. He's the CEO and founder of WASH United. I hope you all had a great MH Day last Friday. Wasn't it a blast? Today, we're coming together to celebrate you and the achievement we all managed together and the amazing efforts that has taken place. We'll present highlights from last week and share preliminary results of what we have achieved together. Our theme for this year was, we need more action and investment in menstrual health and hygiene now. So we'll also talk about progress in action and investment.
Yeah, MH Day was less than a week ago, and thanks to all of you who participated, it was absolutely huge. The highlights and numbers we're presenting today are preliminary, as we were simply not able to sort through all the evidence and examples of great social media contribution and events and media coverage that is there. We're still very much busy in doing that, and we will keep sharing additional highlights on MHJ social media channels over the next few months. So without further ado, let's get started with the program.
So what can you expect in the next 2 hours with us? Mm-hmm. We have 3 parts. The first part, in the first part, we'll be sharing the preliminary highlights so far, like from events, campaign, from media coverage, and also from menstruation bracelet action and other actions. In the second part, we will look at updates. So what progress has happened in the field of menstrual health and hygiene. And in the third and last part, we look ahead towards 2030, because that's our united goal. We have a wide range of amazing guests today, which I really enjoyed talking to. Mm-hmm. So yeah, let's dive into the program. Okay, so we wanted to have a look first at the highlights. And let's start with the events. This year, it has been really great to see that many of you were able to hold events on the ground again. And in some countries where this was still not possible due to the pandemic, there's been a great number of virtual events and meetings, which brought together experts, government, and also just average people who are interested in the subject. So we're showing you a few slides now of what we collected. And don't be disappointed if you don't see now your images from your events. It has been really tough for us to collect the ones that we really like, that it was really tough to put together. But let me reaffirm with you, we look at each and every email and picture that you send. So please keep on sending. So here are our first images. So what you could see from events on the ground, they took place in Rwanda, in Pakistan. There was a fashion show in Uganda, which we also talk later a little bit about. Then we'll have also, what we see is also events in Kenya, in France. I also really like the t-shirt, which included our bracelet, and events in Somalia. Here we now move on to the range of online events that took place. That also took place, were organized by key partners of us, but also by governments, like here the Ministry of Health in Kenya. We had an event, the Women and Child Department in India. We'll talk a little bit about the event on the right-hand corner, which was a symposium hosted by the African Coalition for MHM. And all of you created really a range of different events, and here's just a snapshot what was taking place from all over the world. and like man and menstruation, a celebration. Okay, you see the picture of me where I spoke, but it's really, it was really diverse with a great number of speakers. And which I also liked is that the events were really international. You brought in, speakers from across different countries, showing really that it was collaboration and exchange happening. We're moving on to a few other highlight events happening online. Was an event by the Menstrual Hygiene Partner Alliance in Nepal, by Kotex, where Torsten spoke, and that I can't see, but it's like you can really see how people were engaged. Yeah, a few more just to show how diverse they are and how they presented it. I think that gave you a good snapshot what was happening, right, Torsten? Yeah. So I had to pick a few, which was super difficult. But one thing that got me excited, as a little bit of a fashion. So I was excited to hear there was a menstrual fashion show called the Menstrual Shebang. And I spoke to Shyaka from the Wellbeing Foundation, who is now on his way actually back to Sweden. So this is a pre-recorded video. And I wanted to know more about their event in Kampala. Based in Kampala, Shyaka, who works for the Wellbeing Foundation and together with My Period is Awesome. And they did an awesome event. My question to you, what made you come up with the idea to combine a fashion show with awareness raising around periods? And what did the fashion designer, how did they react to the idea?
Oh, thank you, Ina. So the idea came around 2 years ago. We've been running this Creative Force Swedish Institute funded program project on using creative to communicate period and try to start a conversation and fight period shame and the stigmas and the myths that come around periods. So we thought of what's the best way for us to communicate periods using creative. We started with making things like games, board games. We had the period dance, we've been painting and doing screen printing and all this. And the idea came like, oh, the project is ending in 2 years, so we need to celebrate with a bang with everything we've achieved and stuff, and opening our menstrual station also. So we looked around, and mainly one of the things that happened in the station is people learn how to sew their own reusable pads. That was the beginning. And then it ended up people learning how to make clothes and what we're using a sewing machine. So fashion was the closest thing to the creative tools that we had. And one of our partners in Sweden, who is Statement by Lan, is a designer, is a jewelry designer. So it was only making sense as the closest thing. And I'm like, this is a shameful topic and everyone is supposed to talk about it. If people are having fun, and how do you paint the beauty around it? And I was like, fashion is elegant. So if we're communicating through fashionable clothes and all this, I think it will be fun. And it's happened because everyone enjoyed the show. Everyone was excited. There were the word periods and menstruation mentioned throughout the show, and no one was gross. Everyone was just having fun. And for the designers, most of them, even the girls, were like, "Oh, I'd never thought of this. This is interesting." And like most of them took it on as a challenge. And like, this is an interesting one to make things around. Then I was like, imagine what's the most concerning part about your periods? Because there were 7 designers and 6 of them were women. They're like, okay, so based on one thing that concerns you the most when you have your periods, and get the inspiration. And Bob, they've been so excited to do this. And then the male designer, what would come to his mind was like, yeah, I remember in school, like girls were so scared to be stained and what. I think I'll do something about cool up with stains and outfits. that make people comfortable with having stains and normalize it. And that's how it happened. I hope this answers your question.
Absolutely. We'll show some of the amazing pictures from the designers, and that you have made a real big fashion show, super fancy, and people can also look at this on their website. So my question to you is, what was the response to the event? Can you share some highlights?
So the response to the event was awesome, because in the beginning, we are a small organization, and in the beginning, as we tried to talk to people, call on sponsors and what, no one thought we would make it as big as we did. They're like, no, you can't pull that off. It's big organizations that pull things like that off. And how are you going to convince people? No one wants to be part of anything to do with periods. So that out of 8 out of 10 were rejections when we started to approach people. So we decided to do this ourselves using the Swedish Institute funding to cater for part of the show. And then as an organization, like, we have to hustle and make this happen. And fortunately, now the buzz is unstoppable. Like, everyone like now has a different picture about, because there were questions of like, oh, spending all this money on doing a fancy show, you would have bought pads. There are girls out there who don't have pads and tampons. It would have helped them a lot and stuff. And like, at first it was annoying. Like, many people asking me this question at the show. Then I realized, like, oh, that's why we have this show, to show like periods are beyond just menstrual material and what, the deeper challenges.
Super, awesome. Yeah, and you definitely made a shebang. So yes, welcome back. Wasn't this amazing? So we're moving on to Bangladesh, where I have invited 2 speakers from the MHM platform in Bangladesh, because I also feel it's always really important to show that partners are coming together, that there are coordination mechanisms in the country. So I invited 2 speakers. So that is Arusa Rahim, she's the communication officer for WaterAid Bangladesh, and Farhana Sultana, she's a research scientist at ICDDRB, both in Bangladesh. And I welcome both of them to talk about their great event. So maybe you can unmute yourself, one of you, Arusa.
Hi, Ina.
Hi, welcome.
Thank you so much.
Yes, so I was introducing you that you held an event on behalf of the MHM platform in Bangladesh. What was the objective of your event?
Right. Hi, everyone. Firstly, thank you so much, Ina, for the warm welcome and generous introduction. So Menstrual Hygiene Management Platform, MHM platform, is actually an independent, one-of-a-kind, unique national platform of Bangladesh, where different individuals belonging from different backgrounds and sectors, such as from the government bodies, such as from INGOs, NGOs, all came together in order to sort of form a network that advocates for better hygiene practices, policies, and management. So therefore, as you can already imagine, MHM platform, the MH Day is a huge celebration for us. So besides celebrating MH Day, there were particularly 4 objectives that we kind of wanted from this webinar. So the first being that we really wanted an increased government involvement, and furthermore, we wanted better relationships with the government. As you may visit our website in Facebook, we have a page, MHM platform page, where you will be able to see the webinar, and you will see that different government officials had come in and spoken at the webinar, which we think is a huge achievement for us. Secondly, we wanted to build a knowledge hub and let the people know regarding the Knowledge Hub. So as you can already imagine, so many people are in the MHM platform, and they come from different backgrounds, and they come from different sectors, and they do have so many good practices of MHM. So we wanted to build a network where we can exchange our good practices and learn from each other and let the world know that. And then next would be, we wanted a reduction in VAT and tax for all sanitary napkins. So what happened is that in Bangladesh, the raw material, the VAT and tax on raw materials were reduced thanks to the government of Bangladesh. However, because sellers do have a 15% I think 15% tax on selling the product, that the end product in the market the price did not get reduced. So through this webinar, we also wanted to put emphasis on the situation that, you know, in order for the general public to really afford pads, we need a reduction in the actual price. And then lastly, I think this is the most important agenda that we did have. Bangladesh created a national MHM strategy, which we were a huge part of. And we already helped the government develop that policy, and that policy also got accepted. However, we wanted to also sort of let the public know that there is a strategy that is being developed, and we wanted to help the government roll that out, and any technical support that the government needs for the implementation, we wanted to let them know through this webinar that we are willing to provide it with. So yeah, besides celebrating in numerous ways, this webinar was a success, and I really hope you visit our Facebook page, like it, and also go through the webinar. So thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Arusa, for sharing your success. And as I said, it's a really lively, passionate group. And for Hannah, what were your 3 key highlights and takeaways from the session?
Thanks so much, Ina, for having us in the Studio Image Day program today. You know, this year's theme was more action and investment in menstrual health and hygiene now. So we tried to identify the challenges and opportunities we have. We need for more action and investment in Bangladesh by the government, by the development partners, NGOs, manufacturers, and also the media. So we had the webinar, we had the TV shows, we disseminated messages through social media, and also newspapers, national newspapers. So we ensured that people from the government to the root level participate and discuss. And for example, the people from or women from the minor groups were discussing how they are making pads and selling pads. And also people from the disaster prone area were discussing how it is difficult for them to manage menstruation during disasters or pandemics like COVID-19, and how they are intaking pills to delay their menstruation because of the lack of the facilities. So there are more action and investments required. So we are discussing those things. And the main key takeaways, I would say, was about the advocacy for available, affordable, and accessible products for all the women and girls in Bangladesh, and also exploring alternative biodegradable options or solutions, such as jute cellulose-based sanitary and disposable pads. And also infrastructural development or facility improvement in the schools or maybe in the public toilets or everywhere to create a dignified and supportive environment for the women and girls, and also promoting scientific knowledges to prevent or to destigmatize menstruation. For example, the TVCs here promotes the use of day-long products, but you know, like if you do not change the pads within 4 to 6 hours, it would grow bacteria that would maybe infect your reproductive health. So we have been discussing those things, and also finally the proper implementation of the national imaging strategy, not in the schools, but also garments factories or communities or rural areas. Thank you so much, Ina.
Thank you, Farhana, and thank you both for representing the MHM platform Bangladesh here so excellent. And yeah, please everyone go to their website to connect and learn more what excellent work is happening and the call for action investment also for Bangladesh. Thank you both and have a good rest of the day.
Thank you.
We're moving on with another and last snapshot, turning now to the US, where there's an organization called CouldYou Cup, and they hosted an amazing concert. but they also have events on the ground. So I talked to Christine Garde, who is the founder and executive director, about their event.
Welcome, Christine Garde from CouldYou Cup, calling in from a very early morning in California to share about their highlights, which I'm also very excited about. Christine, please share with us what you did and what your MH Day event entailed.
Yes, so we ended up doing on-the-ground activities in Ghana and also in Mozambique, where our local team distributed the menstrual cup. They talked about hygiene. They continued to bring men into the conversations and government into the conversations and other NGOs. And they did a bunch of radio and even television interviews. And that was what was happening on the ground that day. And then we also did a virtual global event with different artists and people that are coming alongside us as CouldYou Cup ambassadors. So people who have social influence in their countries. And we have partners in Uganda, South Africa, Mozambique, Ghana, Argentina, and beyond. And so we are bringing them into the conversation so that they can use their social influence to just talk about menstruation and break taboos and introduce the menstrual cup for us. And then I can give you just an example. So say for instance, in South Africa, we have these two different social ambassadors, and one of them is a rapper. Her name is Gigi. The other one is Brian Temba. And so he's a soap opera star and a R&B singer, songwriter, producer, but they're not just getting on Instagram to try to break taboos. These guys are coming into the communities, giving up paid gigs, which we never asked them to do. We're just grateful, though, that they're so passionate that they're giving up their time to come into communities, whether it's a rural community where Brian might show up and girls go wild, but then he stands before them and talks about menstruation and how men should talk about it, and it shouldn't be a taboo. And then he also might sing a little, but then he'll talk about how he has daughters their age and how he's encouraging them to do whatever they need to meet their menstrual needs so that they stay in school and chase their dreams. And now Gigi is very much loved by a lot of kids and girls in the townships. And so she just said last week, she's in. And it's like she started to be in the conversation, and then when she really understands the impact, now she's willing to and asking if she can go into townships. She'll sing a little, but really what she wants to do is get girls talking about this and get people to not feel shame or just to not even miss school or miss work or miss whatever activities because they don't have proper menstrual products. And so she wants to, in her own free time, bring the menstrual conversation personally into townships, which is super exciting.
So yeah, really great. And then you had like this super wonderful, as you said, kind of concert, global get together with a lot of fun and exchange across the world. And we're showing some images or a small clip even now. What got me really excited is to learn that this on the ground event and also the global show is not the end, but there are some really tangible action coming from it.
Absolutely. And so the global virtual event, I think what that did is there was an energy. There was, whether it's Jocelyn Dumas out of Ghana or Jerry Wanda calling in from America, or there was Brian Temba from South Africa, Kuka from Mozambique, there was this energy and this commitment. Isabel, Celeste, basically saying, we didn't know about this issue until we were told about this issue. But now we know about the issue, and they have made this commitment to say, we will tell everyone, we will use our influence to be sure that the conversation moves into action. So we now have a American committee of people of influence that are going to help open doors for us, help creatively sharing the message. And then in addition, in Mozambique, for instance, the on-the-ground event went really well, and the local, well, not local, it's a national television station, TVM, has now agreed to highlight CouldYou for free, because we never have enough budget to be paying for airtime. And so we always want to spend that money on product. But now the government, this TVM is going to highlight the work that we do, but they're also going to continue to monthly give us free airtime to share whatever kind of PSA messages that we need to share, which is big because that's a national TV program. So that, and then in Ghana, a bunch of newspapers and some radio and some TV came, and they're quite intrigued with, some of them didn't know. And they're saying the same thing. Let us continue to learn more and spread the news. And so it feels quite tangible, some of the things that are going to happen right now.
Super. Awesome. Thanks, Christine, for sharing.
Yeah, really, really amazing highlights from 3 events. As Ina said before, it was great to see like how many events happened this year. Again, like more and more people were able to do on the ground events. Those who couldn't still did amazing, amazing online events. And yeah, we were spoiled for choice of what to pick here and highlight. It's just like really kudos to the amazing work that everybody did. Now we're moving to another area where we were just blown away by your creativity in, and the many ideas that partners had. Online campaigning, and we want to show a couple of like campaigning highlights that yeah, we feel like you all have to see. One here to start with is, yeah, the world got painted red on Menstrual Hygiene Day.
I remember last year we had one bridge in Canada.
Yeah, one bridge in Canada. Now we have Canada went all red with skyscrapers, football stadiums. My favorite here is on the bottom right. The Niagara Falls were lighted red to honor MH Day. Amazing. Then we see great examples from how governments got involved in the campaigning. The French Ministry for Europe and Foreign Affairs, who are also holding the Generation Equality Forum shortly. The Secretary of the Generation Equality Forum, Delphine O, with a very powerful statement. Agence Française de Développement, wonderful communication from the Kenyan Ministry of Health, the Canadian government, from whom we will hear more, but also like great online communication. So again, like we were completely spoiled for choice of what's happening around the world. Here are more examples then from partners, government partners, but then also already non-profit partners that engaged in, yeah, so many different ways on social media. Here again, more examples from partners, including UN Water, UNHCR, who communicated around the world using the campaign materials to get the messaging out. Here then, a lot of like the larger NGO partners, Welthungerhilfe from Germany here, CEMAVI from the Netherlands, our friends from IFRC, who all joined the online action, and also of course WAGGGS.
Did you see they're using really nicely the our materials?
Yeah,
I like the campaign video where I hope you all have seen it on our main website. It's been so fun to shoot our main campaign video, and I think it has been viewed now more than 2 million times.
No, 4 million.
4 million.
So if you want to watch the campaign video, you haven't watched it yet, go to the Facebook page, and there you will see it. Yeah, a lot more examples than also like from smaller NGOs engaging on issues, from engaging boys and men, where I think like we see like 3 great examples in the bottom right. I think it was one of the themes that a few partners really tried to push, that something I wholeheartedly agree with, that men need to be part of the solution to end period poverty, especially stigma. More examples, here we see how influencers get engaged in the campaign. UNFPA organized their ambassador, Natalia.
That's on the next slide. That's on the next slide, I guess.
But that's here. Look,
Nata
Supernova, who unpacked like her backpack and showed like talked about like the need for good MHM in emergencies. One of our designers on the top right, who's also like an influencer in Brazil, joined the campaign. Here we see on the left top our biggest and most trusted celebrity ambassador, Akshay Kumar, who keeps adding his voice to MH Day and keeps pushing the issue in India. Next to him, a princess from Bhutan. One of my favorite stories on the bottom left, a person who is an influencer but also a political decision maker, a chief from Ghana, who was all over the media in Ghana because he scolded some of his men for not accepting the food of their women because they were menstruating. And he told them that that was completely unacceptable and not okay. What a role model. On the top right, a Nepalese movie star who's working with our partners from GIZ to break the silence together with the coalition in Nepal. Again, like so many examples all around the world, the Philippines, the US. We saw such great engagement of influencers in the campaign this year. And then, of course, we also had some just like really great, crazy ideas. I mean, like, bottom right here, you see some outfits our friends from IFRC in Malawi created. I would like to have one. You have our address. The same holds true for the uterus raspberry cake.
I want one.
You want one too? Yeah. And then, of course, we also saw sports stars and sport engage in the campaign in a really meaningful way. In the middle, you see a tweet from the Rajasthan Royals, an IPL cricket team from India who are tweeting about Menstrual Hygiene Day. And Ina connected with other sports stars from Pakistan who's also an influencer to talk about MHM, right?
Yeah, I thought that's a nice conclusion to, and kind of brings all together. She's an influencer. She has been the captain of the football team and the basketball team. She's called Sana Mahmud. She's an ambassador an MHM ambassador for UNICEF Pakistan, and I talked to her, and it has been really lovely talk.
Why did you become champion for menstruation and an ambassador for UNICEF?
Hello, Ina. Thank you for the kind introduction. Well, first of all, I think menstruation should be an important issue for every woman. And so when UNICEF Pakistan approached me to be an ambassador for this campaign, I immediately jumped at the opportunity. As an athlete, I think it's something very close to my heart. And all throughout my training and all throughout my life, I've seen other girls struggle with issues during sports and when they play. And I've always tried to be that mentor for them to move beyond the challenge that exists in their mind and to start accepting their period as natural and normal part of their lives and to continue their life and their sports in a healthy and normal manner. So I was very happy to be an ambassador, and I still try my best in a very small way, however I can contribute and try to change perceptions around this topic.
And the campaign was Be Bold, Be Free, right? So that girls take example of role models such as you and learn from you. So what were some of the fun activities you've done as a champion, and what was the response you received?
As part of an event organized by UNICEF Pakistan, I, along with my friends and fellow athletes, were invited to an event to bust the myths around menstruation. And that was a very fun activity because we had different girls from schools around our city, and they were asked to talk about what they thought they couldn't do or couldn't eat or couldn't feel during their period. And it was interesting to find out that a lot of them were completely stereotypes, misconceptions that were debunked by the medical team that was also available at the event. So we wrote our misconceptions on balloons, and at the end, we got to burst those balloons and burst the myths around menstruation. So there was a lot of fun, especially to engage with the girls. And the best part was to see the reaction on the girls' faces of surprise when they realized this was actually just a common misconception that they had, or a belief that stemmed from perhaps something that their mother or families had told them, and it was absolutely not true, and that they could in fact proceed with their period in a normal fashion without anything getting in the way. So it was great to bust those myths.
What a fun activity. You also created a super strong video that we have as part of the case study, and we've seen it generated a lot of positive discussion around it with your stars. So today, like menstruation is a global issue concerning all women and girls and people who menstruate. So I'm interested if you, as a sports star, have one message to the global audience, what would that be?
I suppose in simple terms, I would say menstruation really does matter. And even though it's natural and it's happened for centuries, and some people might think that we don't need to talk about it, it's actually the quite opposite, because the more we do talk about it and the more we create awareness around it is when people are going to understand the importance of menstrual health management and menstrual health and overall hygiene, which is unfortunately a huge problem for girls in Pakistan, and I'm sure a lot of similar countries around the world. So people, let's talk about it, let's create awareness about it so that we can together as a community move past the challenges and normalize periods.
Thank you, Zana. That was a very good closing word, and we thank you for your time and your passion and continuation as an ambassador for the issue and for UNICEF. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So now we move on to a next campaign element, which is so important and we're really passionate about, and you also. It's the menstruation bracelet, our global symbol for menstruation. And for this, we also have a few highlights to share.
Yeah, before we kick off with our first guest on the issue, as Ina said, like some really, really cool highlights from around the world. Now, this first slide is showing political decision makers from Germany, from all democratic parties, who put on the bracelet on MH Day and took a stand against period stigma and expressed their support for more action and investment in menstrual health and hygiene to tackle the issue in Germany and in development cooperation. This year, you see again like some really cool images of our friends from UNICEF in the top right, who used the bracelet action in Congo, Brazzaville, to engage 3 different ministers across different resorts to take a stand against period stigma and position themselves for more action. On the top left, you see the Canadian Minister for Development Cooperation, partners from the World Bank, who all took on the bracelet. And here are some of the big collages that we get from our partners. On the left, this is like the monster collage. Our friends from GIZ, who mobilized more than 200 people in more than 28 countries to participate in the bracelet action. And
they set themselves a challenge to
get 28 countries. They made 28 countries and even more than that. Download the picture on their website, and then maybe then you can also like see all the different people. In the middle, you see our friends from the French Agency for Development Cooperation who mobilized the action. In Paris, then our friends from Kimberly-Clark who kind of like mobilized their leadership around the issue and sent us this beautiful image. Then on the right, one of my favorite pictures actually on the bottom right from UNFPA Venezuela, who came up with this ingenious idea to form a bracelet with multiple people, which we have only seen one time so far, something to replicate next year. And here, more beautiful images from our partner WAGGGS on the left, then a dental college in India in the middle that made a big bracelet action. Then on the top right, our friends from OYA, period.org in the middle. Then here we see how on the right side, how WaterAid in the UK activated some of their influencers. So one on the top is a comedian who actually did a really cool video about making a bracelet to yourself. So really cool activation, WaterAid, kudos. In the middle, we see some great images from our friends Kotax, who activated the bracelet, and we're going to learn more about that in a second. More images on the bottom left, one of my very, very, very favorite ones, because that courageous girl didn't make herself a menstruation bracelet to wear on her wrist. What she made herself is a menstruation crown to wear on her head. Okay. How cool and how courageous is that?
And I also want to highlight on the top left is a bracelet made from corn and beads. So I really also like the creativity
from corn
here.
and beans, and what you see here also, I think like one of also like a really, really important image, because while we love it when people are creative and come up with like fancy ideas of like how to make it crazy yourself with materials, but it's also like really great to see like how many people use the simplest version of the bracelet, a digital version, to join the campaign in a matter of seconds. And young people across Africa, from Russia, from India, all across the world joined the campaign using the digital bracelet. Here we see some more cool examples from around the world, an origami bracelet from partners in Singapore. Then on the top right, it's a bracelet designed in Egypt. So you see like the bracelet action has been happening around the world from organizations big and small. Yeah, and now we have our first guest here on the menstruation bracelet action. I am excited to welcome Alessandra Castro, the AFC Global Brand Purpose, Social Impact and Sustainable Solutions. Did I say that right, Leila?
You did.
Yeah?
You did.
Cool, because that title is so long and complicated. I was a little bit worried. Welcome, Alessandra. How are you?
I'm good, and you? Glad to be here.
Good, excited to have you on the show. Hey, your period product brands activated the menstruation bracelet action to engage consumers to stand up against period stigma across a whole bunch of different markets. What did you do, and what came out of it?
Oh, Thorsten, it was amazing. So we in Kimberly-Clark, we have the brand CouldYou globally, which has a really strong purpose that we exist to make sure that a period never gets in the way of a woman's progress. And the menstruation bracelet, it's such a powerful tool and initiative that we embraced, and we partnered together in really bringing not only the awareness, but the education for these girls and showing the importance. So we actually we hosted a live event where you were part of it. So we were really glad to have you there in bringing this awareness and in explaining why you guys are bringing this tool forward. And we got really, really good engagement. So we had for the first time our 4 regional sector leaders joining us to share the relevance and the importance for each one of the regions and what they're doing globally. We also had a lot of engagement from the market. So we saw Brazil, Russia, South Africa, Turkey, Colombia driving initiatives with the influencers, bringing the bracelet forward. So it was really, really powerful. And we definitely are going to be continue working on this initiative as we did last year.
Yeah, super cool. And I mean, like, we're going to learn more about the numbers later, but it was really exciting for us to see like how our partnership also helped to get Latin America a lot more like on the MHD map. So more about that later, but I think it was really great to see like how you activated markets and how people responded across different cultures, from Singapore to Brazil to Russia to South Africa on the bracelet. But you didn't just like activate consumers, you also really kind of like went out there and activated Kimberly-Clark staff and your leadership around the issue, right?
Yes. And as I said, as being such a powerful tool, got really good engagement, and our leadership team, including our CEO, our CFO, our CGO, they all came together and wore the bracelet and start sharing why they were using the bracelet, what that meant to them. So we brought the visibility not only internally but externally from our leaders, bringing this awareness and the relevance, and we see a lot of other people get engaged and sharing their pictures and making sure everybody's part of this process and this movement. We are igniting a new cycle. We want to make sure that everybody's part of it. We know it's going to take all of us to make this change, and it was very, very engaging.
And it's so awesome to hear that in your second year of our partnership already, you managed to actually engage your global CEO and get him to wear the bracelet. So can you please give him a big thumb up from Menstrual Hygiene Day and a big shout out? Amazing. And really, really thank you for your partnership and for your help in getting the word out. And we look forward to continue working together. Alessandra, thank you so much for joining us. Have a good rest of the day. Ciao.
You too. Bye.
So we have also a next guest that Thorsten is going to speak very, very soon. You have seen pictures like from the Global Affairs Canada team Thorsten shared before, where Karina Gold has stood up in a second year as well with a bracelet, and they activated different countries. But we're going to hear more. Thorsten, over to you.
Yeah. I think our guest is not
Tanya
yet.
there already?
Is Tanya there already? Hello, Tanya. Welcome to
Hello,
Studio MHD. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thanks very much for having me.
Thanks for joining us. Our next guest is Tanya Trevors. Tanya is the Deputy Director of Women's, Adolescent and Children's Health at Global Affairs Canada. And Global Affairs Canada was really, you know, like off the chart this year. And we were really wondering what was going on with you guys. We saw you everywhere. So you organized an internal menstrual health and hygiene awareness challenge for the month of May, not just for your employees at headquarters, but actually also for your missions abroad. Can you tell us more about the challenge and what kind of response you got?
Yeah, excellent. That's exactly what we did. We have a few champions inside our midst, both in our geographic branches and in our multilateral branch that does our support to large organizations like UNAIDS and UNFPA. But staff essentially were challenged to make their own 28-day bracelets and then to have a conversation with their family and friends about menstrual hygiene and health. And then they were encouraged to post a picture or a story on a Kudo board that we created specifically for the challenge.
Wow.
We also put up quizzes to raise awareness about menstrual health and draw people's attention to the development issue and the impact of some cultural practices on girls when they menstruate and the stigma and prejudice that they face. And then, of course, there's COVID, which we know is really negatively impacting women and girls at this moment. But in the end, we had more than 80 posts by colleagues from around the world, along with their families, everyone posting great photos with their menstrual hygiene bracelets. We were really pleased to see the participation of so many people, especially from our missions. And I just wanted to share one story from our team in Ghana. They made dozens of bracelets and they raised charitable donations to purchase 350 reusable menstrual hygiene kits for local NGOs. And that was for a donation to give to vulnerable young women in Ghanaian communities. And our team also shared that they were pretty sure that the team has never been so open about talking about their periods before amongst their colleagues, but they realized it was really easy to do. I know our minister, as well as several of our ambassadors and high commissioners, they also showed their support by wearing their bracelets and speaking at different events around the world to mark the day.
That is so impressive. And I think like it's something really like, you know, once we've kind of like had a chance like to recover from MHD, we will get in touch to really kind of like capture the learnings so that next year we can talk to other, you know, like foreign offices and ministries and see, you know, like how they can replicate the amazing work that you did. And maybe at this point also it's time to give a really big shout out to one of the people who kind of like made all of this possible and who's going to go retire very soon. So Peggy Thorpe, thank you so much for all your amazing work. We love you. You are amazing. So just sorry, had to do that. In terms of concrete action, have you been able to increase your programming on menstrual health and hygiene? How are you doing on that side?
Yeah, so Canada is committed for COVID over 2.5 billion to the global response. And a lot of this includes support for sexual and reproductive health and rights and for combating gender-based violence. Like other countries, we know there's a lot of attention focused right now on preventing the spread of the coronavirus, but we also need to maintain that emphasis on sexual and reproductive health and rights, including for menstrual hygiene and health. So Canada's support really emphasizes support for the world's poorest and most marginalized, and we really try to address the intersectional needs of women and girls. We're working to ensure that international partners can maintain services, in particular for vulnerable populations, protecting women and girls. As many know, we have a $1.4 billion per year annual funding support for women and girls that we're ramping up to by 2023. And half of this commitment is targeted to sexual and reproductive health and rights. And menstrual health and hygiene is really an integral part of our commitment to SRHR. We see it in a lot of our support with different partners, both multilateral through non-governmental organizations, as well as our support and dialogue with our bilateral counterparts in countries. We're really, just one last thing, we wanted to share that the latest OECD DAC report on aid in support of gender equality and women's empowerment ranked Canada as the top donor for gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls overall, we're really proud of that, and we maintain our support for women and girls around the world.
And thank you so much for like the awesome work that Canada's been doing there, because I mean, like, especially in the field of menstrual health and hygiene, as we're going to learn later, we really need leadership. And one of the big topics this year, or like the key messages here, was we need more investment in menstrual health and hygiene now, and we really need donors like the Global Affairs Canada to pave the way and to serve as an example for others if we want to achieve our big dream of creating a world where periods are normal by 2030. Thank you so much, Tanya, for joining us on the show and for your continued commitment to menstrual health and hygiene.
Thanks for having us, Thorsten.
Thank you so much. Ciao. Have a good rest of the day.
Yeah.
Ciao.
And because all good things are free, as we say, free, we have another spotlight on an organization that uses the bracelet in an amazing way, and this is the World Association of Girl Guides and Girl Scouts. We'll speak with Adele Lynch, but because we have to switch, I wanted to ask if we can show the video first. Is that possible? From Helga and Sonde, who were just sharing how they activated, and then I talked to Adele afterwards.
Hi, my name is Helga, and I'm from Tanzania. I'd like to share how Ghana and Kenya raised awareness on MH Day through bracelets making and Rose's World curriculum. So the bracelet represents the average menstrual cycle of 28 days, as well as including 5 days of period. We learned how to make the bracelets, shared our skills with others, and encouraged everyone to make one, take a picture, and share with others to create awareness. We reached all places, especially hard to reach areas, shared our fun activities through Rose's World activities, which included learning how to make reusable sanitary pads. We fundraised and we were able to get sanitary pads that we shared and distributed among the girls and young women we did activities with in the areas we reached. People shared their first experiences when they had their first periods, which opened a very wide conversation around taboos, hygiene, and stigma. And all this was actually done through the 1 week challenge through the MH weekday. And it was very fun and interesting. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ianu. I am from Nigeria, and I would like to share with you how Ghana Girl Guide Association and Kenya Girl Guide Association have been able to use their voice in advocating for change in their country. This advocacy was done through the launching of Don't Tax My Period campaign, which involved submission of petition letters to Parliament and raising awareness on social media pages to remove taxes on sanitary products. Also, they were campaigning against period poverty through radio and TV interviews that were centered on advocating for access to a better sanitary towels for girls and young women. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we turn to Adele. Adele, we just heard from two of your program managers, from Helga and Sonde. And you're actually the program coordinator at WAGGGS in London, I guess.
Yeah, that's correct.
Hello.
Hi.
And we heard there's 2 country examples. So actually, WAGGGS did a global campaign and also a Red Pride Week. Can you tell us a little bit more details on what the objective was and what the different activities were that you did?
Yes, I'd love to. So WAGGGS is the World Association of Girl Guides and Girl Scouts, and we are the largest volunteer movement for girls and young women, and actually represent 10 million members around the world in 152 countries. So we deliver a wide range of global programs and different opportunities, and one of these is our menstrual hygiene management program. So part of this is Rosie's World, which is a non-formal education program launched in 2019 with partnership with WASH United. And this allows girls and young women to learn about menstruation by following the story of Rosie and taking part in different activities. They're also supported to take action on key issues such as the price of sanitary products or social stigmas. So Menstrual Hygiene Day is a key moment to amplify our work, and we actually dedicate the whole week leading up to the 28th of May, and this is known as Red Pride Week. So our Red Pride Week activities are developed to mark the occasion and encourage girls all around the world to take part in a new activity every day throughout the week. So this year, the response was amazing. And it was just so good to see the creativity, the energy, the enthusiasm of everybody who was taking part. And there was just so many activities, events, campaigns happening all around the world. So I wanted to share a few of them with you today. So in Madagascar, we had Girl Guides making a dance challenge video while holding up reusable sanitary pads and clean underwear. They used this to share their menstrual hygiene knowledge and their pride. In Uganda and Malawi, the focus was on the environment. So we had trainings on how to make reusable sanitary pads and also how to use menstrual cups. The use of technology helped to involve even more participants, and in Nepal, an experience sharing online discussion attracted 80 participants. And in India, the Bharat Scouts and Guides hosted a 3-day online celebration. They developed a Europort quiz and available in 11 languages, and 5,000 people took part. So the use of technology, social media, was really great to be able to allow people to connect virtually and mark the occasion and amplify our voices.
Thank you, Adele. I'm following you on Facebook, or like the Girl Guides on Facebook, and it's been like such a beautiful picture collection. We had shown a few before. So just talking about it doesn't do justice, so I encourage everyone to check out the beautiful images and the fun the girls had, and they also really champions for the cause. Thank you so much for joining, and we look forward to continue our partnership in the next years with continued Red Pride Weeks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Adele, for joining.
I can just highlight what you just said, Ina. I mean, like talking about what these girls do is... you have to see it.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I 2 days ago, I checked out like the Instagram accounts of Girls, Kenya and Ghana, and I was just completely blown away what they did. Organizing multiple events, engaging government decision makers, young girls, standing up against period stigma and
next generation
going on radio, online shows.
Yeah.
It's just like seeing what these girls do is like really, really. Just like amazing. On to the next topic. Highlights of media coverage. This year, media coverage of MHD was off the chart. We've never seen such amounts of media coverage before in the Global South, in the Global North. On the top left, you see a cover image from like a major newspaper in Germany. Bottom left, you see an image from an online newspaper in Argentina, Mexico, Korea, South Korea, you name it. One of the things that we learned, interestingly, is like maybe one of the most effective strategies to get into the media in a very big way is to select your country's national symbol and light it red, because everybody will write about it in a positive way, but you will also get all the trolls out of their caves and complain about it. So you actually get really, really big discussions about the touchy points about menstruation, and that's exactly what happened in Argentina. The Congress was lighted red, and that triggered some conversation. Let's put it like that. Here are more examples. Akshay Kumar, of course, like when he starts tweeting and Instagramming about menstruation, Indian media pick it up and run with it. But here are more examples from all around the world. It's ridiculous how many examples we find, and just to later, like the numbers we will give you are just the numbers of like what we find on digital media, because like we cannot at all measure what happens on radio, what happens in TV, what happens in normal print newspapers. So the figures that we find is really digital media, and it's absolutely off the chart. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Torsten, for sharing. Yeah, as a small sneak preview, we'll have some preliminary numbers to share later. But still, let's move on with the highlights of MH Day 2021. Yeah. And as we said, as you all know, the theme has been more action, and there has been some action that we also would like to show you.
Yeah, so what we've seen is that there has been some really important policy actions, like for instance, in Assam, the government is now including sanitary napkins in their flood relief schemes. In India, multiple governments announced new commitments to dedicate resources to providing free access to period products in schools and for women and girls in need. Then what we saw is a whole lot of measures to especially also address the constraints in terms of access now created like with the COVID-19 pandemic. So big and small product donations from Brazil to countries across Africa to India. Here you can see more examples. But then also decisions at the municipal level, like the municipality of San Diego deciding to provide free menstrual hygiene products moving forward. So a whole lot of actions, especially smaller actions with regard to access to products around the world. Yeah.
And I think what we try to do after MHA, by bringing this all together, to document these types of actions well. And if you did one of those actions, also please share with us, so we're able to share this with the world. So because yes, we want to show that we're not only calling for action, but we're also doing action ourselves.
Great point, Ina. If you have more actions to share with us, and especially also new commitments from NGOs, from governments, from corporates, send us an email to info@menstrualhygieneday.org so we can include that into our monitoring. I think we have to change positions now,
we have to change the positions.
Because now I am welcoming our next speaker.
Yes.
Gaia, are you there?
Maybe you can introduce.
Gaia Hatzfeldt.
Ah, there she comes.
Gaia, I hear something.
Hello, can you see me?
Yes, I can hear you. Welcome, Gaia.
Perfect.
Welcome to the show.
Hello.
Our next guest is Gaia Hatzfeldt. Gaia is a social inclusion specialist for the World Bank. You're based in Washington, D.C., right?
That's correct.
With a long background on working on gender equality, and you're also the technical lead on menstrual health and hygiene at the bank right now, if I understand it correctly, right?
Yes, it's
great to have you on the show. Welcome, Gaia.
Thank you.
Gaia, the World Bank was super active on Menstrual Hygiene Day this year. What did the World Bank do to highlight the importance of menstrual health and hygiene on and around MH Day this year?
Yeah, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me to this MH studio and for giving us this opportunity to be part of this very important global conversation on menstrual health and hygiene. Yeah, this is the 4th year running that the World Bank has participated in the global celebration of Menstrual Hygiene Day. And in fact, each year our engagement in the campaign grows. This reflects also the growing commitment at the World Bank to improving the experiences of menstruators around the world. This year we engaged in numerous activities to mark MH Day. So for one, we joined the menstruation bracelet campaign, which featured 4 vice presidents, 5 global directors, and many colleagues spanning several units and global practices across the bank. And each one took a stand against period stigma. We also participated in the crowdsourced global campaign video and put together an animation in which Jennifer Serra, our global director on of the Water Global Practice, called for urgent action and investment in MHH specifically through cross-sectoral collaboration. And this emphasis on multi-sectoral approaches is in fact a growing area of engagement at the World Bank. We try to convey this message at this year's Menstrual Hygiene Day through a number of feature stories and blogs that we posted. So in these, we emphasize that if we want to avoid exacerbating social and economic inequalities, and if we want to improve the educational, health, safety, and human development outcomes of girls and women, we need action in multiple areas. Among others, such action requires us to provide wash facilities through MHH appropriate infrastructure. It requires addressing social norms and stigmas in communities through educational efforts. It requires the production and supply of affordable, sustainable, and hygienic menstrual products. It requires availability and training of sexual and reproductive health care, and it requires the sustainable management of menstrual solid waste. So hopefully this gives you a taste of the type of activities we're engaged in and the messages we try to convey in this year's MH Day.
Absolutely. And then another big thing happened on MH Day. You published the first ever resource package of the bank on MHH, and you were one of the main authors of the resource package. So can you tell us what the resource package is and what you aim to achieve with it?
Yes, so this MHH resource package emerged out of this growing internal discussion within the World Bank on the importance of addressing MHH holistically that I alluded to earlier. This MHH resource package is a compilation of available knowledge and tested effective approaches to designing MHH, but repackaged and tailored so in a manner to meet the needs of our operational teams. Because what we found was that there's copious of very rich and very thoroughly thought through information and guidance and on MHH available out there, a lot of it produced by you and other partners of this MH Day campaign. But what we needed was a digestible format for our teams to be able to take to their client governments and convince them of the urgency to addressing MHH. So with this in mind, the resource package includes several tools. And as I said, they are tailored for our task teams principally. So some of these tools include a fact sheet with key data points and available evidence. It has several checklists with questions to ask and points to consider, such as when designing female-friendly facilities, or when planning for behavior change campaigns to raise awareness in communities, or when engaging with social enterprises in the production of menstrual products, etc. Another tool in the resource package is a list of suggested indicators on measuring MHH-related outcomes and impacts that teams can include in the results frameworks of their projects. We've also included a generic terms of reference that outlines a very wide scope of work that for consultancy in assessing MHH entry points as part of the design of a project. And there are several other tools that are included that all aim to help our teams integrate MHH in their operations. What's important for us is that this resource package is a living document, which means that we are continuously updating it and making sure that it's really based on the needs and requirements from our teams in the country. So we'll be piloting it at first and then making it grow and expand as is required. To respond to the second part of your question on what we hope to achieve with this resource package, well, principally, we want to expand the number of projects that address MHH. In the water sector, we are already doing relatively well with nearly half of our water supply and sanitation projects last year, including MHH elements. However, we want this number to grow and ideally get to a point where MHH is mainstreamed in all WASH projects. But what we also want this resource package to hopefully achieve is to facilitate the process of increased cross-sectoral collaboration. We're already seeing a growing number of projects that are reaching out beyond their sectoral comfort zones and are working together with other sectors, such as combining WASH, education, and the private sector. And if we have time, I can describe some of these projects at the end. Because in the last year or two, we have really been building momentum on working on MHH in a multi-sectoral manner, and we hope that this resource package will sustain this momentum.
That's awesome. So it's really a big step towards operationalizing MHH in a cross-sectoral way within a World Bank program. So that's a major action, and congratulations for that. And yeah, thank you so much, Gaia, for joining us on the show and for sharing this exciting update of a major actor in international development making a big step towards mainstreaming MHH into your programs. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good rest of the day. Ciao.
Yeah,
super.
It's great to see, as you said, an operationalization of commitments that they've done since a number of years, and now showing some outcomes, and I'm pretty sure people are interested to read the document here.
Which will be available on, will it be available on our website?
Yeah, we'll upload all resources that we talk about to then the studio. It will take a few days, but we'll make sure that we upload this presentation and also some of the resources that we present today and that came out of MH Day.
If you can't wait, you can Google World Bank and Menstrual Hygiene and 2021. You will find a new site with a blog, and I think like the resources down a little bit there. But in a few days, maybe in a week, maybe a little more. Let's not put our digital team under pressure. It will also be available on our website.
Now I want to talk about the next action that took place. The action itself was not the Menstrual Health Symposium, although it was a really great 3-day conference convened by the African Coalition for Menstrual Health. And the symposium was virtually, the main aim was really networking, knowledge sharing, but also promoting a few champions from political leaderships. There were country sessions, etc. Why I plugged this in today is that at the end of the symposium, there's a call to action. And we as WASH United, and many of you are also members of the African Coalition, and therefore I want to still highlight the call to action. It's a bit long, but we'll also link it. Instead of reading it all out, we thought to show you the closing speech of Dr. Julitta Onabanjo, the regional director for UNFPA, still, because she's also emphasizing the commitment of UNFPA or recommit their action as UNFPA.
Let's continue to challenge ourselves with new ideas and innovation while scaling up what is proven to work. Importantly, let's ensure that programs and actions are measurable and time-bound. We have less than 9 years to achieve the SDGs, and we still have an unfinished business to take care of to realize the ICP program of action. We need scale to scale up. We need evidence-based actions. We need mobilized resources. We need to sustain financing, and we need to act fast. Dear colleagues and friends, let me end. The Africa proverb, sticks in a bundle are unbreakable. It's true today as ever. The unfinished work in sexual and reproductive health, in gender equality and menstrual health should continue to compel us to work hand in hand and side by side so we make even larger impacts. We must stand together and take bold and confident steps forward together. And when we meet again in 2023, as we have committed to, we can yet again celebrate our progress. Till then, on behalf of UNFPA, I reaffirm our commitments to continue to be the foremost partner in menstrual health in Africa. We will continue to champion menstrual health as a cornerstone of the overall health and well-being of half of the world's population until every girl, woman, and person who menstruates enjoys the health, respect, and dignity they so deserve.
That was really always amazing, and then thanks UNFPA who has done also this conference, and we'll talk in a minute about another conference. We have a beautiful image here. There's a lot of, you can rewatch the symposium, also live on YouTube, so a little bit more resources we're going to share. Yeah, that was actually
the highlights part, right?
The highlights part, but we still have a few highlights.
What at the end of the highlights part now, what we're doing now is we're going to dive a little bit into numbers.
Because I think we teasered a little bit about where we stand with MH Day and what we achieved. And
and all of this is preliminary. Some of them we're still counting, but this just kind of like to give you an idea of what collectively all of us achieved together this year, again, under really difficult circumstances with the COVID-19 pandemic ongoing and all the difficulties this is creating. So here, these are the numbers that we can share at this point. So in terms of our movement, the MHD partnership has recently crossed 800 partner organizations, not individuals, but 800 partner organizations. That's a more than 20% increase compared to last year. We are still counting contributions on social media because the campaign period is till like 10 June. But we are right now at more than 195,000 contributions on social media. That is 195,000 times somebody posting original content. This is not a like or a comment. This is somebody standing there, posting a picture, posting a little story, putting themselves out there against period stigma and period poverty. In terms of media coverage, we're still very much counting. And right now, we have found more than 6,600 pieces of media coverage in online media alone. Again, this does not include radio, TV, print. What we've seen this year, even more so than last year, is that Menstrual Hygiene Day is now in editorial calendars, and that media approach partners rather than partners approaching media. In terms of like events, online and on the ground events, we are at 400 and counting. And this is all a little bit abstract, but let me show you like how this has been developing over the last years, where we've come from and where we are now. We started with 155 partner organizations in 2014. We're 800 now in a matter of 7 years later. Mm-hmm. In terms of social media contributions, I remember like how in 2014 we were wowed by 8,000 contributions on social media. Now it's 195,000.
It's a number that
it's just crazy to think like what we have managed together in terms of like getting people to talk about that and creating a buzz on digital media. And now, this is maybe the craziest graph. We started with 89 pieces of media coverage in 2014. We're at 6,600 and counting today. And this is the power of a movement. This is what we achieve all together through collaboration, through partnership, by working together and campaigning as an orchestra. Yeah.
And what I really like, so we're now welcoming you to part 2, where we all talk about progress. And Thorsten has shared in the slides the amazing progress we did achieve together for MH Day in terms of creating awareness. And that's really, I can just emphasize on us, that's the power of the movement that we can leverage here. In the progress session, we also want to talk now a little bit more deeply, like a deep dives into what has been the progress in regions. Is there progress towards ending period poverty? Is there progress towards ending period stigma? And we'll also look at another deep dive into humanitarian. So for the region, I now welcome two great speakers. So we have Tsedey Tamir. She's the WASH officer for UNICEF Western and Central Africa Regional Office. They hosted a regional symposium, as well virtual, in the days leading up to MH Day. And we have Nicole Klaesener-Metzner. She's WASH specialist for UNICEF Regional Office for South Asia. And we both talked to them about progress in their region and then where the gaps are. So I welcome both of them. And I have a first question to Tsedey. Hi, Tsedey.
Hi.
Hi. Oh, so that's Nicole. So we have Tsedey as well.
I'm here.
Hi. I hope you recovered from the symposia. It's been amazing. That has been, we listened in as much as possible. But you also, as part of the symposia, you also did a stock taking on the progress in Western and Central Africa region, which is not so much talked about. I think for me it's also sometimes a language issue. But again, congratulations, and I'm really interested. What were the highlights from the symposia, and what were the findings on your progress updates in the region?
Okay, so hi everyone, my name is Tsedey Tamir. I'm a WASH officer at UNICEF's regional office for West and Central Africa. And please, if I'm running over time, just give me like a hand sign and yeah. Okay, so just a quick background maybe for on the symposium before diving into the highlights. So the overall goal was sort of to have this call for mobilization of all MHH actors in West and Central Africa to unite as well as intensify their work in the field of MHH by conceptualizing, implementing, and evaluating holistic and multi-sectoral work and interventions, that address the full spectrum of the needs of girls. And the agreed objective between the different organizations that were part of what was first an informal MHH working group through what is known here as the Muskoka French Funds, of which one of the focus areas is integrating adolescent and youth sexual and reproductive health as a public health priority in 9 countries in the region. So in East and Southern Africa, a similar symposium had been organized, much in the same sort of organization, interagency, collaborative manner. And we wanted to replicate that for our region, where we noticed that a lot of things were happening, but we needed this cohesive approach to MHH. So the symposium was conceptually organized according to thematic areas that we saw emerging from our discussions in this informal working group, but as well as a literature review that we carried out to map the ecosystem of actors that hadn't been brought together ever before. And we also wanted to fill the information gaps on who's doing what and where and what else is needed forward to move the MHH agenda in the region. So we organized it sort of along 4 main themes: multi-sector collaboration, financing and partnerships, key programmatic approaches and interventions, and lastly, research, monitoring, and evaluation. We also included sessions on sort of cross-cutting topics, which we thought were sort of unavoidable for the region, such as, for everyone, I think, menstruators with disabilities, as well as menstruators in fragile context, because the region is one where you have a lot of protracted fragile contexts in many countries.
So can you share with us the highlights?
Yes.
But very short,
just,
the key takeaways.
Yeah, so the key takeaways, I think this is obvious, but the interwoven implications of MHH for adolescent girls in our region are sort of too important for us not to address it in a multi-sector manner. For example, something that was starkly obvious was that the onset of menstruation is often seen as a coming of age, which coincides with increased eligibility for early union or child marriage. And while child marriage programming in the region did address MHH, and we saw this through reporting and results, there was ample room to make the linkages with other sectors working on MHH, such as WASH or education, specifically on sort of low-tech approaches to MHH education, on strategies for hardest to reach girls who are excluded from formal education systems, and girls at risk of child marriage and or adolescent pregnancy. Another sort of key message was there are a number of existing global and regional tools, including from other regions, for addressing social norms and behaviors, setting standards, and for facilities and services, building knowledge and skills. So now it's more a question of how we adopt and adapt these to the context in the West and Central African region. For example, we discussed the use of using national languages for behavior change strategies in the tools that were developed, and developing specific strategies to target specific groups. And maybe, may I make a last point on research?
Very quick, yes, very
yes.
quick.
Yes, so I think one thing that came out is that we need to make sure we have the right indicators so that we're all speaking about the same things. We need some sort of standardization to compare between contexts, but also to make visible the work that we're doing. We need, for us in the region, what we need is to sort of move beyond a descriptive research to a more solution-oriented research, whether our interventions are working and whether they have a proven effect on the mental, physical health, and well-being outcomes of menstruators. So,
thanks Tsedey. And I think when people want to rewatch or reaccess the volumes, you'll let us know how people can rewatch, because I know there's a lot of interest in the region. You talked about girls, and now I'm turning to Nicole. Nicole is the WASH specialist in the regional office, and it's really also interesting because learning across region, UNICEF and WaterAid together have released a few years back a snapshot on WASH in schools in South Asia, and now they released an update for MHD. Nicole, we're really interested. What has been the progress from 2018 to 2021?
Thank you very much for the question. Yeah. I think we've really had the opportunity with those updates to kind of highlight what happened in the different countries, as well as then kind of draw a regional synthesis. And I think the regional synthesis is really that we went from, in some of the countries, from the basics more towards dignity. And I think that kind of bridges everything that we do. That includes opportunities that were highlighted, such as cross-sectoral engagement and engagement with specifically youth, reporting. The youth in the region have specifically over the last year, based on COVID, become very verbal on social media as well as elsewhere about a variety of topics. And MH is included in this. Last year, because of COVID, we weren't able to celebrate in person, so lots of the celebrations happened virtually. This year, it was the same. And we saw, just as your colleague just mentioned in the statistics, we saw just so much engagement and people that were able to voice out their concerns and their kind of, just their thoughts in a way that they normally wouldn't be able to. And I think in terms of programmatic approaches, we've moved along. We've had a large variety of programmatic and policy documents that were done, ranging from speaking books for teachers, a wonderful community engagement book for community health workers in Afghanistan that was launched by the First Lady there last week. And ranging to the first national MH strategy for on national coverage, really, in Bangladesh. So it's been a long journey that has really taken us to kind of mainstreaming MH a little bit more, enabling us to speak about it a little bit more open. And I think also to see the opportunities that are lying in cross-sectoral programming. There is a lot of challenges that remain, and I think that the region is obviously happy and ready to take on, such as what my colleague just mentioned: monitoring and evaluation, standardization of products, making sure that we're leaving no one behind, such as menstruators with disabilities and so on, and also making sure that the longer, we're currently in horrible second and third waves of COVID, to make sure that the current situation doesn't erode the progress that was made in the past. We do see increase in child marriage based on the situation that the breadwinners of the family have lost their jobs and so on. So this has long-lasting effects that we're going to see in the next couple of years, and where we really need to make sure that we're staying on track with this amazing progress that we've done over the last 3 years.
Yeah, thank you, Nicole. For anyone who's interested, we have the resource already on the MHD website, the regional synthesis report, as well the national studies. They're really great. I really like them because they're very concise and show progress in different areas. And that's what we talk about. So question to you both, maybe you can answer quickly. You highlighted there has been progress. You highlight commitments, what needs to be the areas of focus. Do you think we're on track to ensure good menstrual health and hygiene for everyone in your region by 2013? And if not, what is needed to do that?
If I may, I'm going to go ahead.
Sure.
I think we need more investment. We need more commitment. We've come such a long way, as I just mentioned already. We're moving into this space where we're able to talk about dignified menstruation much more than we were able to do this a couple of years ago. And I think we need to continue on this
road with small steps, but very, very persistent. If we're on track to 2030, I think is going to depend strongly on if we're able to mitigate the effects of the COVID pandemic right now. And that just needs us to double down our commitment, double down our investments, use your motto.
Thanks, Nicole. Yeah, I have nothing to add. Tsedey, do you have something to add? I think that was all, yeah.
No, I think I would reiterate Nicole's message, but also moments like the symposium served as a reminder of the vast community and network of people that work and are passionate about MHH in the region, and that there's a lot being done across so many sectors at multiple levels, and the ingredients for ensuring good MHH for the region is there. What we need for us is a truly harmonized intersectoral approach, that sort of coalesce and and have us partner around a shared vision, harmonize public policies, laws, and action. And as Nicole mentioned, there is a gaping need for meaningful sort of investments that can catalyze all these promising actions and practices. So we need more investments.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think consciously we chose that as a theme. Thank you so much. I think we could talk much longer because there's been such a wealth generated from the region. It's been just a snapshot, but let's make sure to share more highlights in a longer form. Thank you for joining, both of you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you for having us.
Same.
Bye.
Same. We want to also look at, as we always say, our idea is that by 2030, the world we have no period poverty anymore. So period poverty has ended. And because of that, we spoke to Ameer. Ameer, maybe you have seen him from the global campaign video. He's the campaign manager for Period, and they just released the State of the Period Report 2021. And I wanted to know what they found and what the progress has been so far.
Recently, Period and Thinks commissioned a 2021 State of the Period study, which surveyed over 1,000 menstruating students across the country, basically on period poverty. And it found a number of things. These four specifically stand out to me. The first being that nearly 1 in 4 U.S. students struggles to access period products. That's ridiculous. That shouldn't be happening, not in the United States and not anywhere else in the world. The second being that nearly half of Latinx students, so almost 50% of Latinx students, say returning to school made it easier for them to access period products. And 23% of them say that they've had to choose between buying period products and buying food and clothing. The third stat being almost half of Black and Latinx students feel that they are not able to do their best schoolwork because of a lack of access to period products, compared to 28% among white students. And the fourth being that 76% of students believe that they are taught more about the biology of frogs than the biology of a human female body in school. So we need to do a better job educating our students, taking care of our students, making sure that they have access to these necessities, these necessary products, right? And when we look at this, in comparison to our 2019 State of the Period study, which was also commissioned by Period and Thinks, we see that not much has changed. Now, one thing that stands out is in 2019, it used to be that nearly 1 in 5 U.S. students struggles to access period products. Now it's that nearly 1 in 4 U.S. students struggles to access period products. But that being said, we look at it from a broad perspective. We see how COVID-19 has truly exacerbated this issue of period poverty across the world and across the country. And so when we look at all of this, we need to figure out ways for us all to get involved. How can we all get involved? How can each of us really push menstrual equity forward and combat period poverty in our day-to-day lives? Well, there's a couple things that we can do. The first thing that I say is donating to Period, going to period.org/donate and supporting the work that we do here at Period. We really focus on 3 things: education, advocacy, and service. And when we look at service, we see that last year Period donated over $3.4 4 million products. This year, we've donated over 650,000 products to date. Now, compared to last year, Period has received 30 times the amount of requests for menstrual products than it did the year before. And that speaks to how bad this issue has really become under COVID-19, as well as the work that Period is doing on the ground with its partners, with youth activists, and reaching out to leaders in your community, whether you live in the United States or abroad, and you know, really pressuring them to pass menstrual equity pieces of legislation, making these products available in schools, shelters, and prisons.
So yeah, I was really astonished about the statistic about learning more about frogs than about female.
That kids in the US know more about the anatomy of frogs than about like the female body is quite shocking.
It's quite shocking.
That brings us to another issue that we want to learn more about, which is from period poverty, we're now progressing to period stigma. Our next guest is Charlotte Lefluffy. Charlotte is the Global Social Impact Director for Always and Whisper at Procter & Gamble. Charlotte, hello. How are you?
Hello.
Hey.
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Great to have you on the show. Charlotte, Always published new research on period stigma together with localities and was united in the run-up to MH Day. Can you tell us a bit more about what the research looked into and what it found?
Sure. So the research looked into people's attitudes towards periods today across 5 countries. So across Canada, China, Russia, the UK, and the USA. And what we found was that despite all this increasing attention and advocacy around periods very much remain a stigmatized topic that's still so often associated with negative feelings. So globally, when getting their first period, the top 3 emotions that young people still feel today are scared, confused, and embarrassed. And so the report then looked into some of the reasons why that is. And what we found, and it's going to be so unsurprising for so many people on this call, is that society finds it hard to talk about periods. So in the countries we surveyed, less than half of adults say they support talking about periods, and then even fewer people actually go on and talk about them. And, you know, in the majority of countries, people are actually more comfortable talking about politics, sex, and even STDs than they are about periods. And then we double clicked on, you know, when people do talk about periods, how are they being talked about? And we know that it's so often in a negative way. So 1 in 3 people have referred to periods as gross and disgusting. And whilst nearly 1 in 4 people say they think making period jokes is harmless fun, actually, when you look at the data, you see that those jokes are having such a negative impact on young people and causing them to feel self-conscious and embarrassed and less confident. And so then knowing that education will play a key role in helping tackle period stigma, we then wanted to reground ourselves on where young people are getting their information from. And what we find is that school and parents, and especially mums, are still the biggest source and most trusted source of education. So even though you have the growth of online resources and you have the growth of apps, it's not the go-to place for so many young people. And that's why it really was a reminder for us that we need to help to ensure teachers and parents feel prepared and confident to talk about periods, instead of just relying on young people to go and find the information themselves.
What really shocked me when I looked at the data was, I mean, what you just also mentioned, that like in a country like the US, people are significantly more willing and more comfortable to talk about sexually transmitted diseases like gonorrhea or syphilis than about periods. I mean, like in 2021, that is shocking. And that also takes me to my second question. What are your key takeaways when you look at the data? I mean, like, what is the need of the hour? Are we on a track to getting things under control, or do we really need to step up our action?
I mean, I think, and you pulled out one of the most surprising stats, and it's honestly talking about STDs. I'm so glad that we're talking about them because that is an issue that we need to address as well. But like, it's shocking that people don't feel as comfortable talking about periods. And I think if we are going to get to a place by 2030 where we want to end period stigma, there's still a lot more work to be done. And one of the things I keep reminding myself is like, there's this dichotomy between, you know, we work on this topic day in, day out. We see media headlines and we see glamour and we see Vogue and we see like all of our social media like being full of period chat. But actually, when it comes down to it, the everyday person still deep down feels very uncomfortable talking about periods. And changing that, you know, is going to take time, but I do think it's possible. And as a company, we're working to ensure that we talk about periods openly across all of our platforms. I'm super excited by the research that we just did with you guys. We also did a piece of research with Plan on how we can promote an open dialogue about it. We're also starting to engage governments and like help drive that more systemic change of talking with the UK government as part of their period task force, or talking with Congress people in the US to drive change that way. But there's still so much more to be done. And I think, you know, part of it is the work that we do as our organizations, but then part of it is the work that we do as individuals.
Right.
Like bringing up periods in the next conversation you have with your best friend, or bringing up periods with your kid, sharing our knowledge, like asking questions to people that menstruate. And like it is one conversation at a time, but it's still a lot of conversations to go.
And wearing your bracelet to work every day. No, great. I think like also like we're super excited about the report, and we think it's a great start, and hope that this is something we can continue to also track, like how period stigma evolves in countries over time as we scale up our work over the next years. Charlotte, thank you so much for your time and for joining us. This was super interesting. Have a good rest of the day, and see you soon. Ciao.
Thank you. See you soon.
Ciao.
Bye.
One second. Yes, we're back on. Okay.
Please.
Yeah, I. 1 second, please, because we move on. So we now welcome you to a highlight snapshot panel, as we call it. It's about menstrual hygiene management and emergency, because this is a critical issue that continues to be neglected, and therefore we really wanted to host the spotlight session, which was organized in collaboration with the German WASH Network and made possible with support from the German Humanitarian Assistance. So I have three panelists, and I start with my first panelist is Renas Hussain. He's the WASH project manager for the French Red Cross in Iran. Hello, Renas, good to see you.
Hey, Ina,
Hi.
how are you?
Yeah, I'm very good.
I'm very excited to be here.
Yes, me too. Great to see you. And I wanted to invite you as a first speaker, because to ground this panel discussion that we've continue is really in the reality of the girls on the ground. And therefore, my question to you is, so can you share what are the key challenges to ensure the menstrual needs of refugee women and girls in your context that you work in?
Thank you so much. I'm very glad to be here and having in this panel. And thanks for every viewers also. Just a correction, Ina, I'm a project manager in Iraq, not Iran.
Oh, sorry, I did. Oh no, that is really terrible. I have Iraq here on my list. No, really, I have Iraq on my list.
No worry. Coming back to your question, I have seen from the guests that they have mentioning the challenges in their countries. So it's almost same in overall the world and countries, but what makes us different between Iraq and other countries is, that we have faced this war, ISIS war in our country, which make damage in many shelter and infrastructure in the country. So this is lead the girls and women to face challenges in three different gates. Like lack of access to the infrastructure, lack of materials, and lack or misinformation for the menstruation.
And it's really difficult to understand when you live in a crisis mode for so long, right? So and you said there are 3 areas, but there are quite a lot. So in your opinion, what action should be required to make menstruation hygiene management for women and girls, like improve it or make it a bit higher priority?
That's a really good question, because from Iraq, like French Red Cross, with the collaboration of the Iraqi Red Crescent Society, and with you guys, we have developed the Rosy Sword into Iraqi context, and we now call it Alam Rosi in Arabic. So the knowledge is something very important to be separate among the girls and women. And from our side, we have organized, or we have tried to provide the materials, information to the girls and women in some particular area.
Thank you, Renas. And we know that you work on that. There's a great webinar from your colleagues also that the IFRC hosted as part of their webinar series. So again, we want to link it. Thank you for your very short input. I hand over now to Adrian Dongus, who is taking up the balls of the local challenges to now address the work from his perspective. Adrian is a consultant for MHM in emergencies, working for the UNFPA and UNHCR partnership. Hello, Adrian.
Hi, Ina. Good to see you, and happy belated Menstrual Hygiene Day.
Yes, happy belated MH Day. All survived it somehow. Yeah, you're in a... So I wanted to say what Rena said, but also what Nicole and Tsedey mentioned before, that coordination, collaboration is really required in this field. So, and you're sitting there as a coordinator between UNFPA and UNHCR. But my first question to you actually is, we've seen pictures from both organizations. So can you share with us how the organization have participated in MH Day 2021 this year?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think MH Day 2021 also for our organizations has been the biggest one yet. I think the best way to explain it for us has been we've tried to separate our activities across 3 different levels. So we looked at activities at the national level, regional level, and the global level. So at the national level, we looked at country operations for UNHCR and UNFPA, and see how we can support them to organize their own Menstrual Hygiene Day activities. We started that in late March with the support of you guys, Wash United. We did a joint webinar to explain to country operations how you can organize your own Menstrual Hygiene Day, what activities you can do, how you can learn from activities that have taken place in the past, and how you can engage the stakeholders that you want to reach out to. Then on our end, with the team from media and communications, we developed a lot of online content specific for UNFPA and or UNHCR, as well as some guidance, which was shared before Menstrual Hygiene Day, so that they could pick that up and make their life easier. They didn't have to develop the content themselves. And then across our operations, this was launched, and you've seen this all across social media. I think there's some really amazing participation from countries. And they also designed a lot of their own activities, I have to say, that panel discussions, you name it. At the regional level, and you've had speakers, I think, here today already, we had the amazing 2 MHH, Menstrual Health and Hygiene Symposiums in Western Central Africa and East and Southern Africa, with a 3-day program engaging different stakeholders from governments to NGOs, UN agencies, talking about a range of different topics and challenges that we face to better address menstrual health and hygiene across these regions. But we also had regional offices like the Arab States region and Asia Pacific that developed additional content-specific context for Menstrual Hygiene Day, which was amazing. And then finally, at the global level, we worked on content for large media outlets. So we worked with our Goodwill Ambassador, Natalia Volyanova, recording an unpacking of a dignity kit. That's basically a set of products that we provide to women and girls in an emergency that include menstrual products. And this went everywhere from US Vogue and Elle to BBC and other places, and got a lot of reach. Our global social media team created all of this content and posted this on our channels throughout the rest of the day. We had in-depth articles as background to the UNFPA programming on places like Angola, Mozambique, or the Arab States. But what's really important also is that we try to mobilize donors. We did a high-level event, a side event to the World Health Assembly, where we brought together UN member states, bilateral and multilateral donors, and as well as private sector and philanthropic donor institutions, to have a conversation with them and engage them, because they are a crucial part of ensuring that we can structurally address MHM in emergencies moving forward. And finally, internally within UNFPA, we use the Menstrual Hygiene Day bracelet campaign to activate our colleagues.
Yeah, amazing. Really big kudos to UNFPA and UNICEF, and also thanks to you, because yeah, you kind of pulled everything together and spread widely, Adrian. Great job. And you talked about content, and we worked also on a piece of content together with you, but also with other partners such as the IFRC, the German Wash Network, Welthungerhilfe, and that's the MHM in Emergency infographic, how we called it, because we really wanted to put the information that Rena shared a little bit, what is important, and into one infographic. Maybe you can quickly talk us through with some 3 key highlights that the infographic touches upon.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think this is a great example of how we should be approaching Menstrual Hygiene Day. First and foremost, the collaboration of different humanitarian agencies, the Menstrual Hygiene Management in Emergencies Global Working Group, and of course, Wash United and others to develop a common messaging on what the most important things are. And for me, let me pick out 3 things. I think number 1, of course, is the challenge. You know, we're looking at over 80 million people displaced by war, conflict, and disasters. And roughly half of those are women, and they're menstruating for 40 years of their lives on average. Just massive. So when they find themselves in a humanitarian disaster, challenges to managing menstruation really are exacerbated. And especially when it comes to materials and access to wash facilities. And addressing MHM is not really prioritized all the time by our actors, so there's just need for more attention to that. So what is the goal then? Number 2, I think the aim is that we want to change that so that all who menstruate can do it safely, hygienically, and with dignity. But practically speaking, in a humanitarian context, that means that we need to look at 3 aspects. We need to look at the access to materials and supplies. We need to ensure supportive facilities are in place, including the means for disposal, and provide basic information on menstruation, including product information, personal hygiene, and the menstrual cycle. So the last question then is, how do we make that happen? And that's the 3rd point in the infographic. And you make that happen by first recognizing that menstruation is a topic that cuts across a lot of different sectors within the humanitarian space. We have Monica here from the Global Wash Cluster. Thank you. So WASH, but also we have education, protection with GBV and child protection as important actors, health, including SRH, but also other sectors such as shelter, camp coordination, and camp management. So all of those, they play a critical role, and it is important that each sector understands what their responsibilities are, what should and should I not be doing, and where can I rely on the other sectors to pick up when I've completed my responsibilities, and then ensure that we have some effective way of coordinating between these different sectors, to prevent any kind of gaps and also don't create any overlaps. But that being said, what we do face is a reality that right now we face a massive funding gap. In 2020, there was $20 billion estimated gap between the funding needs and what was provided. So if we really want to take this fundamental need of access to dignified menstrual health and hygiene in an emergency context seriously, we need to ensure structural funding is available for it.
Thank you, Adrian. And you gave me, we echo that, and you gave a really good leverage to our next speaker. I think it was right, because you mentioned the areas which Irena's touched upon, and you mentioned collaboration, coordination across different areas. And therefore, we're really, really wonderful to have Monica Ramos. She's the coordinator of the Global Wash Cluster for UNICEF, based also in Geneva. So, Monica, wonderful to hear from you.
Great. Thanks, colleagues. And it's so nice to be here, and really just happy to join you today.
Yeah, same here. And it's really great, not only because you're a woman leading the Global Wash Cluster, but we really would love to talk coordination with you. Where do you see menstrual hygiene management on the WASH cluster agenda, and other different sectors that also Adrian mentioned before, working together to enable this holistic response that he was talking about, ranging from supplies to products to awareness and education?
Great. Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, definitely this is very high on our agenda. I mean, we've been making investments over the past few years really about making sure that the overall WASH response does really respond to the needs of, young women, girls, and really just making sure that there is the access to the basic materials and the appropriate facilities that are needed in order to address, menstrual hygiene. So I think for us, we really look at this as, not only menstrual hygiene, but also, you know, more broadly around kind of safety and dignity and really a good programming approach. And we try to coordinate that in terms of really making sure that this is really centered around the needs of, you know, young women, girls, and females. So I think for us, we're really looking at how we can, in the work that we do, which is really focuses on the humanitarian program cycle, really ensure that this, you know, gender responsive type programming is really being taken seriously. So as we do the they're starting in a few weeks' time, the humanitarian needs overview in the various countries where we have activated clusters. I know that we do yearly reviews to see kind of the footprint that we have of menstrual hygiene management in needs assessments, and then obviously the analysis around that and how that then gets articulated into response planning. I mean, in 2019, we saw this increasing by 6 countries, in 2020, 12 countries, but this year we really need to get to 100%. So that's definitely, you know, high on our agenda, and we'll actually be hosting a webinar in a couple of weeks with our national cluster coordinators to really make sure that this is really coming in strongly as they work with the partners on the ground. That happens. I think obviously, you know, we definitely promote existing standards. So we know that this has been, you know, MHM has been included in the Sphere handbook since 2018. So we're always promoting that and making sure that, you know, it becomes an integral part of the humanitarian WASH response and really making sure that it's mainstreamed in. And I think really, you know, this also ties into the broader work that we're doing around, you know, gender and gender-based violence. And really, we do see this as being such an important part of that, as we know that sometimes coping mechanisms, bad practices in terms of what some girls and women have to result to because they cannot access items or they cannot access a facility that is needed. So, I mean, we're definitely trying to make all of those linkages and make sure that this really stays at the front and center of the gender responsive programming. And I mean, maybe just on the second point, really about where this sits with kind of the intercluster within the intersectoral collaboration, I couldn't agree with Adrian anymore. This is cross-cutting. This is for everyone. And so I know that there is a reaction, oh, it's WASH, okay, MHM goes with WASH. No, it really is all of the work that we should be doing, because we're really talking about a gender responsive approach. And I think that, you know, one of the things we could really look at doing is, you know, beyond just that coordination between some of the key areas around WASH and health and protection and shelter and NFI, and I mean, they go on and on, is really to see how we can embed this as potentially, you know, a standing agenda point at ICCG meetings in countries at the level. I mean, we know that this working group right now is not part of the formal cluster system, but I do think that there should be an entry point to that. And I really do see that the ongoing efforts that the working group is doing in terms of particularly MAH in emergencies is really starting to take us there and take those first steps. But I do think that we need to have at the global level, but also at the country level, you know, a really more systemic approach into how we do that. And I do think embedding that in as part of, you know, what we do, our way of doing business and the way that we coordinate would hopefully get us there and be a good step towards that.
Thank you, Monica. Yeah, it was great because this session or this part of the session is all about progress, and you shared progress. It's really promising to hear from you that the attention is growing, and collaboration coordination is challenging on all levels, like on the ground, on national and global level. So just one very quick question. So what is needed, what is most needed to make MHM a reality for all women and girls in emergency so that they can have a dignified and safe and menstruation?
I mean, I would just say really the participation. I know that we're really pushing towards engaging with those affected by emergencies, living in humanitarian crises. So in terms of the way that we actually do the decision making, so when we go through the humanitarian program cycle, from a coordination point of view, it's super important that when we're doing those H&Os and doing those WASH assessments or those general assessments, this doesn't have to just be in a WASH assessment, that we're really understanding what the needs on the ground are and how we can better take that information information and actually design then an appropriate response. And I think, it sounds so basic and it sounds like, why aren't we already doing this? But we're not. And so I think we need to, both from a programming point of view, from what our partners do and us as coordination, is really see how this is such an integral part of how we develop the HNOs, how we develop the HRPs. And also we need to monitor that. We need to make sure that, we are hearing the voices of those that are most impacted by this particular topic. I mean, we need to have, women and girls deciding the location of where they want their facilities and understanding the taboos around, waste disposal from, materials and items that are being used. I mean, these are the real things we really need to do to understand, the cultural bits. Thank you, Adrian. I know I speak in acronyms. The cultural bits, also thinking about, just the overall holistic approach. So I think for me, it's really about the increasing the participation in the decision making, and then not only at the front end, but also at the back end, really in the monitoring and the feedback loops and the complaint mechanisms, so that we can really sound check ourselves and understand, are we doing this? And so we've been working with partners on accountability and quality assurance approaches. We're also looking to bring on board a people-centered programming coordinator that can go to the field. We're looking at a women's participation project. So we're looking at it across the board in so many ways.
I needed to cut you off, but I think what I definitely take away is, and I think that's a similar point that we also really love, is user-centered, participatory, looking at and context specific, looking actually at every woman and girl and her needs. Thank you so much for joining. I think our message was really clear. I'm really glad we could have this little snapshot on MHM and emergencies, and let's continue the conversation and emphasize it through several platforms. Thank you, the three of you, so much.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you, both of you.
Thanks, everyone. All the best.
All right. So that means our second part comes to a close. We've looked now at progress. We first looked at the highlights from MHA this year, then we've looked at progress in regions. We've looked at progress on the issues of poverty, period poverty and period stigma. What we're now going to do is we're going to look ahead. We're going to look at the road to 2030. We're looking to the future, and to look at the future, we have asked a person that is extremely knowledgeable on MHH and a close ally in the fight for a world where period poverty and period stigma is finished, but who does that from a more neutral role of a researcher. And now I'm working for a consulting firm. Our next guest, Laura Amaya. Laura is associate partner at Dalberg. Laura has worked on a range of research projects, including on the big landscape report titled Advancing Gender Equity by Improving Menstrual Health, which is kind of like really in terms of knowledge and looking at the landscape in MHH, one of the key publications we've had in the last few years. And we've invited you, Laura, to share your reflections on what really needs to change to end period poverty and stigma by 2030. So without much further ado, Laura, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Thorsten. It's wonderful to be here for a second year in a row, actually. I wanted actually to start with a personal reflection. I have had my menstruation every month for roughly 2 decades. And I was doing a quick math this morning, and that's about 1,200 days that I've been on my period. And yet I only started really thinking about menstruation in 2019, when, Thorsten, as you mentioned, I partnered with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to explore the landscape of menstrual health and hygiene around the world. And it struck me that there was so little work and research in an issue that close to half of the world's population experiences for a significant part of their life. Now, if we put numbers to this, that means that menstruation is an issue that happens, or rather something that happens to 3.8 billion people, largely women and girls around the world. And of those, our study found that more than 500 million say that they do not have what they need to manage their menstruation. Now, 500 million, that is roughly the population of Russia, Mexico, and the United States together that doesn't have what they need to manage their menstruation. Let's just think about that for a moment. So let's go back to the challenge, right? What does having everything you need vis-a-vis menstruation really mean? Well, at a very basic level, it means having access to the right kinds of products to physically manage your menstrual bleeding. But menstrual health and hygiene really goes far beyond menstrual products alone. It means being able to access safe, private, and hygienic sanitation facilities with adequate disposal options for those menstrual products. It means having information and knowledge to understand how menstruation is intimately linked to almost every aspect of a woman's health. And crucially, it means not being excluded, not being stigmatized, not being demeaned for a natural process without which humankind really would be able to exist. And yet, despite this being such an important issue at the core of half of the world's population, the vast majority of actors who could have an impact on improving menstrual health and hygiene are just not doing enough to get there. This includes governments, companies, foundations, academics, even the NGOs operating on the front line. Despite our best efforts as a field, we're really not doing enough. To give you a sense of perspective, the largest funder who has openly committed to improving menstrual health and hygiene is the Case for Her. Now, they are a small but mighty organization run by a small group of women in Sweden, but their work is really a drop in the ocean versus what is needed to tackle the issue at scale. So where are the others, right? Today we have a clear and compelling case for investing in menstrual health and hygiene. And actually, a large part of that was captured in the investment case report that was published by PSI and Wash United and other partners. We need to start buying into that case. We need to start buying into the case that menstruation matters. We need to stop asking ourselves if it makes sense to tackle or to invest in menstrual health and hygiene. We need to move beyond the chicken and the egg problem of not investing until we know exactly when and how to invest. And really, we need to put an end to the narrative that puts women's issues in the background. I think in short, what I'd say is we need to start tackling menstrual health and hygiene as what it is, an issue at the core of every woman's existence that affects her every month, and that does not discriminate between rich or poor, black or white, urban or rural, wherever you are. We need to recognize that without good menstrual health and hygiene, our efforts to achieve gender equality will not succeed. And so today, I think it's fantastic that we had the events of Menstrual Hygiene Day on 28th of May. It's fantastic to have this session today. I want to invite, or rather to urge, all of the global community, wherever you sit, in government, as a funder, as a company, on the front line, to commit to tackling menstrual health and hygiene, to invest in solutions that improve menstrual health and hygiene across the board, to design strategies that embed this lens, whether the entry point is education or health or sanitation or economic empowerment, to include menstrual health and hygiene indicators when monitoring and evaluating our work, right? To partner, to amplify the impact of what each of our individual organizations can do, and critically, to commit to funding this issue far more than the incidental investments we have been making as a field in the past. As a sector, we are at a crossroads. Yes, there is progress, as we have seen today, but it is far too slow. If we want to reach a world where no woman or girl is kept from achieving her full potential by 2030, right? That's less than 10 years. We need to drive a step change in how we think about and invest in menstruation. And we need to do it now. So Thorsten, Ina, I know this community has bought into that, but I think the message needs to be, we need to step up right now. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Laura. That was, thank you so much for your reflections. And,
that was not even a reflection, that was a TED Talk as a call to action to all of us.
There was a call to action. And yeah, thank you so much. And I mean, I actually was on a quick phone call with Wendy Anderson from the Case for Her yesterday, just to really ask him, you know, like if it's really, you know, what are they investing in the issue, and is it really true? But actually, they are literally the only philanthropic donor, the only foundation that we know of that has menstrual health and hygiene as a strategic funding priority. And they told me that they invest $2 million a year. So there is no foundation investing more than $2 million a year in an issue that affects half of humanity. I mean, this is a joke. This is ridiculous if it wasn't so sad. Thank you so much, Laura, for your intervention. Much appreciated, and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so from Laura just now to Julitta, to Nicole, to Tsedey, to Ameer, to Adrian, there's one key message that's been running like a red thread through all the conversations we've had today, and that is that progress on menstrual health and hygiene is too slow. And the key reason for that is an ongoing lack of investment in the issue. We have the technical solutions to address menstruation-related challenges women, girls, and other people who menstruate face around the world. We have plenty of organizations that are willing to step up their action and take it to scale. What we don't have is the funding to make that possible. We simply can't scale our action to the level that is required to end period poverty and period stigma by 2030 without adequate funding. We've seen today that we're making progress in terms of raising awareness of MHM and addressing the stigma in society. This MH Day, more media than ever have covered the issue, and more young people than ever have joined the campaign and helped to make an ever greater dent in period stigma and in taboos still surrounding menstruation. We see increased collaboration and coordination between stakeholders at all levels, at the global level, at the regional level, at the national level. This MH Day, we have also managed collectively to further raise the relevance of MHH at the political level. From Germany to Congo, Brazzaville, more and more decision makers are standing up for MHH publicly, in the media, on social media, on pictures, everywhere. We see that the menstruation bracelet, our global symbol for menstruation, is really helping us engage decision makers and people in the mainstream of society alike, take the issue out of our sector bubble. But where we haven't seen much progress is in terms of investment. Yes, that also has to do with the ongoing pandemic. And yes, governments, of course, need to direct urgent resources to tackling the COVID-19 crisis. But be that as it may, we as a sector, to take the words from Laura just now, are at a crossroads right now. We have a joint goal, and that is to create a world where no woman or girl is held back from achieving her full potential because she menstruates by 2030. In order to achieve that goal, we as a movement must take action to address the lack of investment now. This means that moving forward, we will need to sustain and, if possible, further expand the amazing work that all of you, all of us have already been doing. Our efforts to raise awareness, educate girls, and provide girls and women in need with menstrual products must continue. But on top of that, we as a movement need to redouble our efforts to push, and push for more investment at all levels. Over the next few months, the International Secretariat will develop an overarching advocacy strategy that enables MHD partners to collectively push for more investment in MHH at international, at national, and local level, not only on MHD, but importantly, all year round. Starting in 2022, advocacy for increased investment will be a key element of the MHD campaign and a key measure of our success. A key issue next year, we will have a big slide where we will look at the progress we have scored in terms of getting dollars for our work on the table. For the past 2 years, our movement has withstood the pandemic. We haven't allowed COVID-19 to slow us down or even to stop us. On the contrary, our movement today is bigger, is stronger, and is more impactful than ever before. Next year, we will start addressing the next challenge. And as we always do that, we will do that together as a movement, creating a world where no woman or girl is held back because she menstruates is still possible. It's on us to make it happen, and it's on us to make it happen collectively.
Thank you, Torsten, for these powerful words. I think that was really important for us is, yes, we have a celebration, but we also really want to look ahead because as you can see from this wonderful infographic, and as you both mentioned, we're at a crossroads. And I really believe in collective impact, and I'm positive. I like hiking, and the road to the top is getting tougher and tougher. But what we've seen this MH Day is really giving me enough courage, because as you mentioned, we're bigger and stronger than ever, and every year we grow, and with that we have enough energy to reach the top and power through to ask for more action and investment. So that theme will, maybe not the main theme, but we definitely put it out as a narrative for us. So we're coming to the end of the show. It went again in a whirlwind. I could again stand here forever, even if I probably, after MH Day last Friday and the studio today, I will.
Remember last year we had like 7 hours of live show, and after that we were like, oh, we will never do that again. And then, now after 2 hours, it feels like we're only getting started. Yeah, and there's just like so many people, who haven't joined us today. And thank you so much for everybody who joined us today, who participated, who spoke on the show, and who contributed. Thank you beyond that to all our 800 MH Day partner organizations. A big thank you to all key partners of MH Day that really help us to drive our impact. And a very, very, very special thank you to the organizations who provided financial support to help make MH Day 2021 happen. Procter & Gamble with their brands Always and Whisper, Kimberly-Clark with their brand Kotex, the World Bank Group, the French Ministry for Europe and Foreign Affairs, the Case for Her, GIZ, the French Development Agency, the German Humanitarian Assistance, Welthungerhilfe, Knorr-Bremse Global Care, the Merck Family Foundation, Dr. Schnell, Cora Mikino, Panties, and Oya. Thank you so much. Without your financial contributions, MH Day simply wouldn't be possible. And also a big shout out to our pro bono partners. Meltwater, our technology partner whose media intelligence platform enables us to track our impact in terms of media coverage and social media at a highly professional level all around the world. Lobeco, who are giving us strategy advice on our social media communication. And last but not least, Facebook, who have provided us with advice on how to use their channels and ad credits to support and scale our campaigning efforts on their platforms. Thanks all of you very, very much for your support. Last but not least.
There's a really, really biggest thank goes to all of you, who listened, who created events, who support the campaign, and were willing to take the next step. So the movement wouldn't be there without you, and we're immensely grateful. We're standing here because you make MH Day happen, and we'll continue to work for you in the next years to come till 2030, where we hopefully reached our
Teamwork
goal.
Makes the dream work.
Teamwork makes the dream work. And with that, I officially call to an end to Studio MH Day for this year, and hope to see you soon. Thank you, everyone, and goodbye from Berlin.
Thank you. Goodbye from Berlin.